Hello, my beautiful mythical creatures. I am back at you with the continuing of a Podfic. Someone Like You by Sparkly Pasker on AO3. We're at chapter 8. Also, my name is Ace. I feel like I forgot to introduce myself there, but I'm Ace, he, she, and on we go. On we go. Chapter 8. A mere week after applying to St. Dame's, Izuku graduates from middle school. I'm sorry, I want to listen to something. It's very quiet right now. Anywho. Izuku graduates from middle school. There was little fanfare at the ceremony. Everyone was so caught up with the celebrating with their friends and family, they didn't pay attention to the quirkless kid that graduated with them. It was unlikely he was ever going to cross their minds after today. Not unless they see some story in the news about a quirkless person committing suicide or something like that. Thankfully, Izuku's classmates being preoccupied meant he was able to walk out of the school grounds unseen and alone. Why alone? Because Inko didn't show up. And why not? Because she was a poor single mother who had to sacrifice being able to see her only child graduate. Oh, poor Inko. But a sacrificial mother is an honorable mother. Honorable mother. Society saw her as the epitome of what a mother should be, rather than the neglectful neglectful POS she really was. Izuku had realized that fact a long time ago. But it was only recently that he was able to admit it to himself. It was shortly after that Izuku began to think of his mother as a roommate rather than a parental figure. Oh wow, I put a lot of Gatorade powder in my water. That's kind of bitter. It's so freaking good. Anywho, when Izuku arrived back at the apartment, he went to his room to put away his diploma and change into more comfortable clothing. A notification flashed on his computer. He sat at his computer and opened his email. It was a message from St. Dame's. It was a message from St. Dame's for Izuku to take an entrance exam. The invitation expired in a week, so Izuku needed to make sure to take it by then. Izuku wasn't really sure when he was going to take it. The original plan was to exercise and work more, but Izuku hadn't returned to the gym since the day he had last spoken to the owner. He couldn't talk himself into going back. He was sure it would be awkward, and it was hard for Izuku to convince himself otherwise. As far as he was aware, he was still welcome there, but he didn't know if he could stand being in a vulnerable state around someone who thinks he's remarkable simply because he had gained muscle without a quirk. What idiocy. as if having a quirk changed how simple muscle function. Changed how simple muscle function. Scratch that. There was probably a quirk out there that did just that. But that's besides the point. Most people all have the same muscle structure. Even when it comes to people with strength enhancing quirks, they usually just have more of the same structure. The email went on to mention why the entrance exam was necessary. Izuku could have guessed the reason himself, but they didn't know that. So they continued to mention that due to the discrimination faced by the quirkless community, the middle school grades almost never reflect the actual ability of the application T. The scores were used to determine placement and eligibility for scholarships. Izuku understood, wanting to make sure that most applicants could get a good education despite their income. But he wondered what that meant for those quirkless individuals that had both below income and didn't score high enough to get the scholarship. He thought about it critically. Whether someone had a quirk or not, completing middle school can be a challenge. They have to work every day just to make enough money to survive. That didn't leave enough time to study. So it's not uncommon for someone to fail the graduate, and those in that situation that did make it through would more likely score high enough to qualify. He guessed it all came down to Ashley graduating middle school, and the entire world would try to beat the quirkless down. Between the students, the teacher, the administration, and the people on the street, everyone did what they could to make sure the quirkless never got anywhere in life. Izuku was actually one of the lucky ones, despite having a neglectful parental figure, basically raising himself. Because of Inko's insistence on having a perfect public reputation, Izuku didn't have to work, so he was able to teach himself whatever he wanted to know, and got to where he was in life because of it. You know what they say about silver linings. Izuku sighed and leaned back in his chair. He looked at the clock. This would be normally about the time he went to work, but he had the day off due to his graduation. Well, if he wasn't going to the gym and he wasn't going to work, what was he going to do for the rest of the day? He had been so active lately that he couldn't just sit and watch TV. He had to be stimulated somehow. He began giggling to himself. But before finding out about crime fighting, Izuku would just sit at this computer and look up hero fights and fill out his notebooks. When he was a kid, Izuku would either leave the apartment looking for fights, or source the internet looking for videos to take his mind away from the gnawing, to take his way from the gnawing feeling in his gut. When Inko hadn't brought groceries or left any money for Izuku to go purchase his own, and eventually it became more of a habit than necessity, Izuku found himself not being hungry as he was, and found joy in breaking down what makes a hero a hero. After all those fights, he saw how happy people were after being helped by a hero. Izuku decided he wanted to do that too. He wanted to make people smile. He wanted to be a hero. Then once he realized that was going to be impossible, he found crime fighters. Another silver lining. Thinking about how far he had come made him feel motivated. Izuku decided he would take the entrance exam the next day. Today, he was going to research patrol routes, price some equipment, practice his martial art forms, and hopefully find a martial arts school that will teach the quirkless. He hadn't had any luck so far. All the dojos he had checked stated they do not teach quirkless individuals due to insurance reasons. They didn't want to have to pay claims if a quirkless person was injured by someone with a quirk. Izuku found it a little odd that he wasn't escorted out of the gym when the owner found out that he was quirkless. He figured that it wouldn't be much different, but maybe it is because it's a gym and he wouldn't be fighting other people. He wasn't really sure, and he didn't want to ask in case that reminded the owner Izuku couldn't be there. And that made him think about their interaction again. God, he just couldn't stop thinking about it. For 10 months, he was able to go to a public place and be treated like he was normal. Then the second he mentioned being quirkless, he's insulted. At least Kimura was only being insulting. He wasn't abusive or harsh or disgusted. And didn't that just feel weird? Being treated like that had become so frequent that it was normal for Izuku, and being treated with what amounted to indifference was foreign. He really didn't know what to think about that. Izuku sat down at his computer the next day, ready to start his exam. He opened the email and clicked on the link. He had already eaten breakfast and was ready to go. He had 6 hours to complete the exam. The exam was programmed to start easy, but the questions would progressively get harder. would progressively get harder. The number of correct answers will determine his placement. There are a total of 300 questions. 20 of them are graded and the other 10 are undergraded. 200 of them are graded and 200 of them are graded and the other 100 are undergraded and used as a test for future exams. Izuku will not know which are graded and which are undergraded. He must get at least 160 questions correct to qualify for the scholarship. Izuku laced his fingers together and bent them backwards, sending a series of cracks throughout the room. He then shook his hands off. His heart was pounding as he pushed the green start button. 3 hours later, Izuku pushed submit. He felt refreshed. For as long as he had taught himself, Izuku hadn't really been able to challenge himself with any tests where he couldn't just look up the answer afterwards. He loved it. The confirmation page loaded. He would receive his results within 72 hours. He couldn't wait. That is the end of Chapter 8. Chapter 9 will be up next. I'm going to read the first little bit of Chapter 9 so you know what's going to get into, and then I'm going to talk a bit more. Walking into Chapter 9, walking into work early in the morning was a surreal experience. The cafe was nice and quiet, because it wasn't opened yet. Okay, guys, so since I'm reaching the end of schooling, I'm going to be very, very busy. So I'm actually going to be recording a few chapters ahead and be scheduling them for the days they should be posted. So in other words, Chapter 9 will be scheduled for next week, Chapter 10 the week after that, and so on and so forth. I'm going to at least record 5 including this one. And maybe when I have time I'll be recording other chapters. But once I get home and settled, I will be stopping that and waiting for it to catch up before I continue recording. But until next time, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out. Stay hydrated and eat donuts.